Welcome to Moke and Friends. It it is me, Moke. I know it's been a while. I feel very happy being back, but it's been a while, and I was gonna come back and just kind of be me, or just me with my friends, just maybe just talk some dumb shit. But I said that I wanted to kind of come back on just a not even a serious note, but just something real. So I brought my cousin back with me, Miss Margaret, Dr. Margaret Wallace. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you.
That seemed like a long intro just for me to say that. Thanks for being on here. I'm looking at myself in the camera because I'm using a different my phone camera, and it just looks so crispy. But how are you tonight? Thank you for joining us.
I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. I made it a good. I made it a better day than it started. How about that?
What do you mean by that?
So yeah. So I was telling. I did a live earlier this morning, and I was saying that I this week I've been feeling a lot of pain in my body. Like,
Mm,
grief is. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But grief is so physical sometimes. It's like weight on your shoulders, and there's this kind of pain I feel in my heart from time to time. It was just, and so I had to do a deep meditation this morning to
right,
still my mind, and I just kind of kept the vibe going. But when I woke up, I didn't feel rested, or peaceful. So I had to
right.
do something to feel better. So that's what I mean.
Um, I kind of just want to just jump in really quick.
Jump.
So you know we let me see. I'm trying to put the words together. I'm a little bit run down today. I've been chasing after Stink, and boy, you know, like I when she was like 5, 6, 7 months, it was just so easy. But now she is like getting into shit.
I see her
Like
moving
she
around.
she is like she's walking, but she's doing like this running thing, and she's dodging for shit when you're not looking and stuff. And so, and I'm so overprotected that it's I'm stressed out all the time.
You're just
Like,
anxious. So
yeah.
Stink is your baby girl, right?
Hmm.
How old is she now?
She's 11 months. She's gonna be one on the 19th of October.
Wow.
Yeah, and she's walking, talking, and eating shit, and just like all over the place. You know what I'm saying? And I love it. I love it. But I was just thinking today because my girl, she's a nurse, so she does like her notes on the weekend, and so I'm like,
Mhm.
I'll just keep sticking. You do your notes and everything, and like she takes a lot of energy out of me. You know what I mean? Like she really be all over the place and shit, and I'm
Okay.
just like, man. But it's a beautiful thing. But anyway, so I feel like we have something in common. We're cousins.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? But
Real
we
cousins.
all,
Yeah.
huh?
I said real cousins.
Yeah, I know, which is crazy. We are real cousins, but we all also share some type of grief,
Hmm.
right? For I guess I'm not gonna just go all the way in, but for anybody who's new, my grief is I lost my daughter on 4/20/2016, and so I just kind of been dealing with that in life, and then you lost your fiance
December.
on December,
December 5th.
and
That's last year.
the 5th of December last year, and y'all were gonna get married with the next month or the same month
In
or
February.
2 months later. Okay, so we
And
have
and then
some.
and then 7 months before that, I lost the father of my kids that I'd been married to until I was like 30 something.
So when you lose, like, because I mean it's an ex, but like the father to your kids or something,
Mhm.
are you still like sad, or are you like it's kind of sad?
You want to know what happens? Well, it was double. It was a weird feeling because, like, I remember the physical impact in my body.
Mm,
Like, I felt like a cannonball or something like that hit me in the belly, hit me in the stomach. And like I literally fell to my knees because it was so
right.
real. But the grief is watching the kids. For me, it was watching the kids. But when he died, it's like something weird happens, or it happens for me, where it's like you go back in your mind to when you all were young, and like the real
Mm,
from the beginning to now.
yeah.
It's like you forget all the crazy stuff that happened, you know, and your heart feels for them in a way like you felt. There's more compassion. Like just
But was it hard though because your fiance was still alive when you're right? So how was that?
so he actually helped me and the kids cope, and manage that. So he helped me. He was with me when I went to tell my son, and just stayed with me the entire day with my daughter, telling her and just being there. So he was there. His presence was very comforting
Right.
and reassuring throughout that time, because when the kid's dad died, they're the older ones. He's got two younger kids, but they're adults, but they're young adults. So they had to start taking care of all of his legal business and
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
Very stressful. We had to plan the funeral. We had to go choose clothes, all of that stuff. So yeah, that was weird and very stressful.
I mean, did your fiance help you with that? Like he helped you
He
like
didn't.
pick the clothes and stuff?
No, no, the kids. It was me and the kids, but he would be there. After I'm done all day helping them do all of that, he's there for me to vent, to talk.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Did he go to the funeral with you?
He didn't go to the funeral. I think he had something to do that day, but he couldn't go to the funeral. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, all right. So you've had two major losses within a year.
Hmm.
So within 7 months.
Hmm.
But I know that you're going through it. I'm trying to look for the right words. I know that you're going through it, but I do see you doing you occupy your time wisely. Whether it be streaming or whether it be that you're traveling somewhere and streaming, but you occupy your time wisely to the point where it would look like do you even like deal with like the grief or the emotional grief?
Yeah, man. Okay, I think I know what you're trying to say. I'll tell you, those things are helping me to stay busy so
Hmm.
that I am not always in grief. As in,
Right.
I'm not always below like, I'm not always at the bottom. So I'm at the bottom a lot, and I'm in at the bottom more often when I'm not busy,
Mm,
I'm not working, when I'm not traveling. And I realized I needed to take charge in a way of the grief process, because I had experienced grieving with my mom in my 20s when I was just helpless. Like, 21-year-old, you don't really know what to do when your mom
right.
dies. And I did not want to go back that low. So I tell people, and over the years in therapy, so I'm a psychologist. So over the years in teaching people how to manage grief, I say, give yourself a bottom, like a flooring, where you're not going to, you make yourself really, well, I do anyway, not go below a certain point. So you're like, okay, if I feel this intensity of pain, I've got to get up. I've got to go do something different than whatever it is I'm doing in the moment.
Right. So that means your rock bottom per se can't be too bad.
Well, I
Like
don't.
it,
I
it, it,
refuse to
it
let it go. too
It can't be
fast.
something that you can get too complacent in. So it has to be like what would be yours?
Gosh, mine for this grieving experience was ending up in the hospital because like I couldn't breathe. My heart was hurting and I was having difficulty breathing. And so my son said, "Mom, you look weird. You look very stressed out. You look sick." I'm like, "Yeah." And I was so restless, physically restless. I couldn't catch my breath. I had spent the whole day just in physical pain
Yeah,
from, and I kept driving around. I stopped at a lake. I walked around the lake. The feeling didn't go away. And by the nighttime, it seemed like it was getting worse. He said, "I know you don't want to go, but you're coming with me to the hospital because I can't lose both of my parents like this." So
right.
I went with him, and turns out after the testing that there was some enzyme or hormone called troponin that's connected to heart attacks
Mm.
that was elevated. And so that was my lowest point, and I was like, "Oh God, I gotta cut back on my stress. I gotta keep moving. I gotta travel, travel, travel." So yeah, I really got into the travel after
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
but I feel like that wasn't your lowest point by choice though, because you said that you give yourself a bottom, and that bottom seems like a bottom that is by choice. You know, like if I go this far, then that's when to cut it. So that just kind of seemed like some shit happened. You
It's
know?
subject for me, it's subjective. So for me, it's like if I'm in too much pain and I can't shift the pain. So some things I'll do to shift the pain, like seriously, whatever it is I'm doing, when I realize this is too much for me, I'll get up and I'll go do something else. So if I'm in the house, I'll leave the house, I'll go watch a movie. If I'm out and about, I'll go by the lake or I might go to the gym. I started going back to the gym this year so I can, physically pound some of it out. Um, but it's more of a subjective feeling. And these days I connect it to that little, it feels like a knife is pricking, like somebody's stabbing your heart with the tip of a
Yeah,
knife. I see you nodding. You
yeah,
relate?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
So when you're feeling like that,
Hmm.
how do you I guess you just have a strong mind because how do you like not give in to I guess just doing like stupid shit as to like drinking or doing drugs or some shit?
The thing is, I've never really used those ways to cope. So um, I've never really used them to cope. So they don't really work for me.
Right,
Probably a blessing. So, yeah, but if they did, there have been times where maybe I was thinking this, right? So I was thinking my son has been with me since December, since that happened. And he just left and went off to do a training in Albany um, about a month or so ago. But he's been with me and
right.
he keeps a good eye on me. So I was thinking to myself, I wonder if he wasn't there. I wonder if I would have been different, like giving in, maybe saying, "Yeah, man, let me take a shot of something."
Yeah, right,
Pain felt that intense that you're like, I just want to numb it out. I just don't want to
right.
feel it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to sleep. And it was hard sleeping. Talking about sleep, like I would go 24 hours, can't sleep. 2 days, I can't sleep.
Look, I have there's a question. I usually don't do questions, but I want to open up the floor, I guess. How critical is self accountability to good mental health? I feel like there's a line between blaming yourself constantly and being self accountable. Interesting.
Yeah, there is a line. I mean, when it comes to grief, like say grief is a mental health problem. I don't think there's any blaming yourself you can do because it just is gonna come. Like it's just gonna come. I don't know a way to stop it from coming. What I do know is I know I can do many things, and I have to
Mhm.
try the many things to see which one gives me a bit of an ease up, like a break.
Right.
Um, So my job is to see for me when it's a subjective flooring. Okay, this feels like it's just too much. If I feel more, and I had that sensation. Here's the thing: my mom's death again at 21 essentially trained me for this because
Right, right,
I couldn't control it. So, like about 6 months after she died, I felt like if I felt any more pain, I was going to die. Like I would
mm,
die. And so it was then like that I said to myself, I am never going to allow myself to go beyond a certain point.
right,
I have to figure something out. And so again, as a therapist, you learn coping skills because you have to teach it to people. So I
right,
changed the way I'm breathing. I learned a way to breathe where like breathing through a straw.
right.
It
Yeah,
you're slowing down the way you're moving the air. We do that, kind of intuitively when we're in pain.
right.
Something is hurting. So I do that a lot, and I do a lot of deep breathing. So a lot of times I catch myself doing it when I'm on a podcast even, and I'm trying and I say something I like I'll breathe, you know,
Yeah.
and I move my body. I have to move. That's called behavioral activation, where you go do something. But even if you're feeling like shit, man, you got to get up and you just do an activity in the hope that while you're doing it, your emotions shift a little bit. So I in the earlier days, the earlier months, and now too, some days, like just I'll at least get an ease up, like I'll get a break from the intensity of what feels like torture, because it feels like somebody's torturing you. But when I get up and I do something, I get a little bit of an ease up sometimes. But like that day when I ended up in the hospital, no matter what I did that day, I was not getting an ease up. It just kept escalating. The feeling did anyway.
So, well, so let me ask you this. When if you've gone through life and shit's been just pretty good, and then a traumatic situation happens, can
Hmm.
that make you have mental illness?
Absolutely. Because
Okay.
absolutely, like it will. So I think a lot of us, we start experiencing high anxiety, something maybe you might have never felt in your body, because anxiety is so physical too. You
Right.
just know you're afraid of you're looking, you're more hyper vigilant. That's a big piece. You're more hyper vigilant. You're looking out for when's the next piece of ish gonna fall. You're on high
Right.
alert. So anxiety goes up. Of course, your sadness goes through the roof. And mental health. So for depression, if you've gone for longer than 2 weeks, where the depression also adds, you also have appetite problems and sleep problems. You start looking at major depressive disorder, or at least an adjustment disorder. So yeah, those things. That's what happens for most people. Like you might have a predisposition to depression in your family, and you probably didn't even know it. Something like this happens, man, you lose your job, you lose your baby, you lose your spouse, and it feels like you can't get out of it.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I asked that because see, when I lost Ro, like everything just always kind of just seemed gray and grim. And so I forgot how I met my cousin Belina, but when I met her and I went to the islands, I remember her telling me we were talking about something, and she just mentioned that I had mental illness. And so at first that offended me.
Took you back. Hmm.
Yeah, because I worked with MHMR and stuff for a long time. So every time I heard mental illness, I'd always think of MHMR, shit like that.
Hmm.
And so then as life goes on, and I see that I have like bad anxiety,
Mhm.
I'm anxious, like just or just like a weird survivor's guilt type thing. You know what I mean? Like if I'm having some good days and say I have like a good 2 weeks in a row. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
I start feeling guilty
Yeah.
that I can find some type of happiness through my grief, if
Yeah.
that makes any
Makes a
sense.
lot of sense. It makes a
And
lot
and,
of sense.
and just to even I mean I think me and you talked about this, but even before Stink was born, I didn't know how to feel about, you know what I'm saying, like how my emotions would really would really, like, you know what I'm saying, like feel of having a new baby and having a baby that passed away.
Yeah.
And for, I feel like for somebody like looking in, like sitting out looking in, that
Hmm.
doesn't seem like a big deal,
It's a huge deal. It hurts like
but
hell, doesn't it?
right,
Because it's on top of the sadness, and what you're doing is you're healing. Yeah, you're recovering, but you feel guilty, like as if you're leaving them behind.
right.
Yeah. And yeah, it's very painful. It's a new pain. It's like a different pain, and it's a new pain. And people can tell you all they want. Oh, they would want you to be happy. They would want you to be happy. But I think there's a part of us that goes a little bit almost into self-destructive mode. Like I'm
Hmm.
not gonna be happy. I just want to feel the pain, because the pain is almost like a reflection of the amount of love I had for them.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's crazy. And I mean,
Yeah.
I'm better at that. Like I don't really get that anymore.
Yeah.
But I did at the beginning, but I caught myself maybe I think last week I just kind of had a re a guilt remorse
Mm-hmm.
of just kind of slightly being happy. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that it's not that bad, but then sometimes it is. Like my I feel like my anxiety has been pretty bad lately, but my I haven't really just been super grief. But the thing that caught me off guard is because I go into like a big grief mode around April, which would
Mm-hmm.
be her death month, or around July, which would be her birthday month. But I
Mm-hmm.
was telling my girl like a couple of weeks ago that I out the blue just started feeling sad, and I didn't know how to handle it because I was like, the times aren't adding up, and then I just had one of those moments like, oh shit, like this is that grief thing that kind of just it just
It
comes
shows
when it
up.
wants to, yeah.
It shows up. Yeah.
And I mean, out of like all the, the 6 years she's been gone and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
this was like that was like my first time of that really just kind of happening, because I realized I'm a very calculated person. Like I things that I do things when it's around certain, like around times and things like that. So for all these years, I mean, I've been having, like just 4 years of grief.
Yeah.
But as my getting better years, I
Yeah.
feel like I just grieve on birthday, death day. You know what I mean? But now that it's like October, and I'm like, oh shit, like I feel like I can't grieve that long because like my daughter's birthday is coming up in October. You know what I mean? And so there's right there's no wrong or right way, but still with me, I'm still trying to maneuver it as if there is a wrong or right way, which will probably just fucking like fuck me up in the end. But I mean, I'm just trying to maneuver through it.
You're trying to make your way. You're trying to make your
Right.
way. And, I can't judge you on it, because each of us has our own way we have to do it. Because for some of us, it's just too much to, like, you almost have to compartmentalize it, or else it would take over your entire existence, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's you recovering and trying to make sense of. of things, because she's not going to go away she's not going to leave your heart. But it's like,
Right, right.
how do I keep living and keep living for real, where I can enjoy life,
Mm,
but still hold her in my heart.
yeah.
It's an individual process, and we just gotta be, I say, forgiving of ourselves, because that's expected. There is that survivor guilt when you're like,
Mm,
why am I happy? Or even sometimes you think, okay, I think I'm getting better. So some days, for most of the day, I might be feeling okay, like I would not be thinking about him. And when I think about him, I feel pain. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting better. And then I'll come home and I'm looking at the traffic and remembering, oh, shit, you know what I mean? Like, oh,
yeah.
end of the day, we're gonna meet up. I'm going home. And it's like, and you know, so it caves in on you again.
So, I mean, how do you deal with that?
Man, so okay, so I think in a way, I tell people I became an expert in grief by force. You gotta feel it. You just gotta feel it and face it. You just have to feel it, because I know for sure that there's gonna come a time when it won't hurt that bad. So in the meantime, so I again, that's from my mom's experience. I know there's going to come a time, if I keep moving, if I keep putting one foot in front of the other, if I keep feeling horrible on the days when I feel horrible, if I keep feeling grateful for those days where I get a window where I'm not just desperately missing him. One of those days, it's almost as if it's gonna come together.
Mm,
But in the meantime, I just gotta go with it. But for me, I give myself a flooring, man. I give myself,
yeah.
if this is feeling so painful for you that you can't sit still, you gotta get up, go do something different. Because that
Yeah.
at least give me a chance that that pain will shift to something else, even if it's for 30 minutes. So even so, like my lives and my podcast have been a blessing, let me tell you. And I think the people who listen to me too, a couple of them on there, like they are really kind,
Mm,
very kind, and they listen. So they're almost like, it's almost like therapy for me, because they're sharing their stories too, of grief and life and pain. And it's like as if you have somebody listening to you
right.
almost every day. So it's like therapy for me.
Do you ever do you like really talk about your grief on your podcast stuff you do?
Hmm.
So do you talk about it in regular life too?
Yes. In regular life, so something that happened, well, at least for me, I think I started getting a little bit to where I, I don't want to overwhelm people
Mm.
in a way. Like I don't want to just talk.
That was my next question was going to be do you get tired of talking about it, or do you feel like you're overwhelming people? But you
Yeah.
answered that.
Yeah. I worry that they want to, move on with their lives. They don't want to,
Right.
and I don't want to burden them with it. So, but I'm with a couple people, I am more open. Let's say that. With a couple people, I know they can hold it. I know they understand that I'm still in deep pain, so I don't have to be anybody else for them, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. How about you? Did you get to that point where it felt like, man, people gonna be tired of me talking about this? Like,
Yeah. I think I got to that point probably like when I had first moved to St. Croix, and now I'm not even on that anymore. But now just the way I carry myself as if I'm still like feeling that people are tired of hearing about it, you know what I mean? So
mm,
as in like 4 years ago, I would bring a bro in a conversation every single time. But now, like, there's a good chance I won't. You know what I mean? There's just a good chance that
Mhm.
like I have to really just get to know you and talk to you and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Because, as I always say, is that nobody's obligated to care about what you're
that's right.
going through, who
That's
you
right.
lost, and so
That's right.
it sucks. But what I do realize about grief, and this is gonna sound whatever, but whatever. But grief is different when you are a guy, and grief is different when you are a black guy.
You
It's
know, tell that's
very
powerful,
different.
man. Tell me about that. Tell me more about that.
And I could be wrong, but just as a black dude that's like having some type of grief now as I'm older, I don't want to show that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like and it's because my brain is my worst enemy too.
Mhm.
So I always feel like I'm being judged, or I always feel like that it kind of just gets to the point where people are just, it's like, yo, like, you should be strong. You know what I mean? You shouldn't. It's over with.
Mhm.
You
Like
just
man
got kind
up.
of have to deal with it. Yeah, and so that's like my gift and the curse, because I think that sometimes people think like that, and so I just, that's my creed. I just kind of instill that in myself,
Mhm.
and whether it be wrong or right, I would
Mhm.
just instill that in myself, just so I won't have to really deal with breaking down in front of somebody, or just, well, if I do tell somebody and I'm conf I feel confident enough to tell them, and then they give me the sad, like, oh man, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
because that bugs me too. You know what I mean?
I
Because
know, man.
once you give me the super sad thing, I'm not talking about it no more.
I
You know what I'm
know.
saying? Like, I'm dropping it, I'm changing the stuff. Like, there was one dude last week at work, like, I kind of just brought up. He was like, oh man, and then I would just talk about work for the rest of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because I'm past the point of wanting to feel pity, because I think that there was a good point where I wanted to feel pity.
yeah. You needed it. It's part of
Yeah,
your
yeah,
process. You know, the other
right,
thing for me right now, and this year, I've been watching the people who are too careless with me. Like, there are some people who are like, oh, you're a psychologist. Oh, you had that experience already with your mom. You should like
right,
almost like you should know what to do, and you should,
right,
why are you suffering so much?
hmm,
So those people, I watch for them because I can't be around them.
right, right.
They're too head people for me. You know what I mean? Like I need the understanding still. But I get what you're saying. Like you come to a point where you're like, I don't want to feel like I'm not over it, but I'm okay. I'm
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. I don't need the what you're calling it pity. You're like, hey, I'm good. I can talk about her now, like my mom. So for my mom, I'm like that. I'm like,
hmm,
yeah, it was a horrible death. And so when I share the story, people are like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, I've moved through that already. But I remember in my 20s, man, I needed to hear somebody say that
yeah, right.
shit that happened to you. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I'm just at a point to, like, I'm at that point now that if I do bring her up around somebody, it's to celebrate life. You know what I'm saying? To talk good, because I'm also at a point to where, if I do have the sad thoughts, it's just me by myself. But I realized I've been talking to her a lot,
Yeah.
and I was thinking, like, am I crazy?
Yeah.
Because I talk to her and she responds, and I'm like, is that her responding, or is that just me responding as if I'm her? Like
Yeah.
I'm some weird shit. I don't know,
That makes
but,
sense
but
to
but but it
me.
helps me. It helps me.
Absolutely. That makes sense to me. All day long, I'm having
Yeah,
conversations I'm like, camps, like a normal stuff I would normally be talking to him about. I'm having
Yeah.
a running conversation. If I'm having a response about something, because your person, you go out during the day, all day long, you're on the phone with them. Hey, this just happened. Hey, can you believe it? You come home and you're sharing all your whatever. Man, I saw this, da 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 da. Da. So I
Yeah.
love this because it's just a thing I normally did, but it's also helping me in a way because it makes me feel like his presence is not far.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So with you traveling and stuff,
Hmm.
would that be a form of like running away a little bit?
So a little bit, but it's also something we enjoy doing a lot together,
Mhm.
and it's a big energy in a different way than sadness.
Right, right.
It's like massive action, but massive positive action because when I travel, it forces me to do different things. Like I must get my passport out. I can't be in the bed. I can't be lying down for 4 hours. I gotta get
Right.
up. I gotta eat. I gotta get a taxi. I gotta do things. I gotta stay busy, but in a positive way. So it that's been so like I'm so grateful that I had the thought to do it because like that's where I started to feel a little shift because I was just going like this, man. I was like,
Yeah.
what the hell? Like, what in the same hell is going on here? So yeah, that's forced me to do positive things. And again, I didn't want to because I'm not a drinking person or but if I were a drinking person,
Man, I'm telling you. Whew. Yeah. But
mhm,
the crazy thing is too is I'm a drinking person, but I'm never the just get drunk and you DUI and blackout drunk.
wasted. Mhm.
Like I'm a I am a drinking person even when I was in the islands because the drinks were so cheap there. But
Yeah.
I never really just I never really got like that. Like I never really just like got
That's
blacked
good.
out and just ended up like crying somewhere. I never did.
Yeah. That's lucky and that's good, because yeah, some people can't get out of it, you know, because it's like you have a big problem and then you make that big problem make little babies.
Right.
It's just adding more and it's hard enough recovering from grief than to add.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I was just like kind of just deep in the grief and I was, like messing with cocaine and all that stuff. And I remember whenever I would do it, probably like if I was doing it for a couple hours, I remember that feeling and it was one of the best feeling just because it just felt like everything was so positive and
Hmm.
everything was like gonna be okay. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I would think the next day, like my face is hurting and I'm like praying to God, like, oh, I'll never do this again. Like, oh God, if you cure me from this, I'll never do this
I'll
again.
never do it
And
again.
then 2 days later, you're doing it again or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think about those times because like I said, in those times, like I did certain things, like I taught myself how to play the piano, yada yada, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But now that I look back and I think about this stuff, in those times, I never thought I would be out of those
To
times.
get out
You
of
know
it.
what I
I
mean?
know. I
I
know.
I I, I used to think that man, this is gonna be me. Like I'm about to be 50 years old and I'm gonna be all like messed up and stuff.
Strung
And
out.
so
Mhm.
and so this like my mind is just so crazy because then when I get out of these situations and then
Mhm.
I start doing good, then I start questioning myself and be like, well, were you really grieving, were you really in grief? And then I think that's when I fall to the bottom, you know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
just because of like I'm like, oh, I'm not messing with drugs, nothing, whatever, then
Right.
I really start questioning if I'm grieving, who I am, my loyalty to the one that passed away and stuff, and then it just fucks me all up.
Yeah. Look, it's like the mind kind of takes over those thoughts, those negative thoughts overtake you.
Mm,
And I'm telling you, that's why I learned that. I learned that real about that bottom, man. Because for me, look, I I never I'm just because I'm not a drinking person, I never really did. I was a good little girl, you
right,
know, church girl. But what I did is I was just wide open my whole 20s into my 30s. I just felt like I was bleeding on the inside every day, you know.
right,
So it's like you go through life with that kind of level of pain, but you mask it, you hide it, because you know you don't want other people to see it, because you're supposed to, us black folk, stay strong, you know. And I was doing other things at the time too, like school. So I was going to Ole Miss and having my kids. Those were things that allowed me to move through it,
right, right,
you know, to distract myself. So the cocaine was a great way to distract yourself, right? But the pleasure of, you know, taking care of a little baby was a way for me to distract myself, perhaps, you know? Yeah,
hmm.
yeah.
So, what do you think about psychedelics?
So there's good research supporting psychedelics, you know, like psilocybin and mushrooms and um, ayahuasca, stuff like that. You know, yeah, there's a lot of plant medicine out there. In January, I wasn't, you know, the amount of pain I was in. I thought about going down to Costa Rica to do an ayahuasca retreat, but my daughter was so terrified because her dad had just died and Glenn had just died. She was like, "No, I don't want you to try anything weird." So I
Come on, man.
and they were just so terrified. I mean, they were so anxious for real. They were like, "What is going on?" She's like, "What?" It's almost like, you know, the world was ending for them.
Right, right.
What is happening here? So they were not. They were like, "Nope, nope, 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 nope. We can't take a risk that you go try this new thing that not enough people know about." And yeah,
Are you still open to do that?
I don't know. I feel a lot better than I did in February. So
I mean, but what does that mean? What does
I
that
mean,
mean?
the pain is horrendous some days, but I'm managing. You know, like, did we talk about this? Like, in when I went to the hospital, essentially that's called broken heart syndrome, right?
Yeah,
And because I did all the scans and there was no structural damage to my heart, although that hormone was elevated. So the doctor came on, and then the psychiatrist came in, and she said, "I know you're a psychologist, so you know what's going on." And so we connected. They connected me. My insurance connected me to a therapist, and I did a nice set of sessions with the therapist. But the psychiatrist said to me, "Please don't act as if you're superwoman. And if you do get to a point with the grief and the sadness that it's too much, please consider calling us for medication support."
right,
The travel helped me. Like I said, I think if I hadn't started the travel therapy, I would have needed some more support because
right,
it's just too much. Um, but yeah, so that's what I mean when I say, I mean, the pain is there like all day, every day, but it's not at the level every day where I can't bear to be in my body.
right.
Mhm.
But I still think you should take some psychedelics. And I'm only saying, look, it was probably maybe probably 3 weeks after my daughter's funeral,
Yeah.
and and I remember me and my cousin Dre. I don't know if you know Dre, but me and him, we went down to. I went to Dallas, picked him up, and we went to Kingsland Lake. And my friend's family has like a house on the lake or whatever, and we go wakeboarding and shit. And I
Yeah.
remember before we left Dallas, he said, "Hey, I'm gonna bring some shrooms." I said, "All right, cool." So now when I get there, I'm the guy whose daughter just passed away like less than a month ago. You know what I'm saying? So constantly people are asking me, "Am I okay?"
Yeah.
And so I remember we were like, it was like me and him. We're the only two black dudes, a bunch of white people, and we're
Mhm.
about to eat the shrooms. And even him, everybody was like, "Yo, are you sure you're good after what just happened?" Blah blah blah. You know what I'm saying? Like you want to be in the right mind. And I remember being like, who cares? Like, let me just do it. So I remember I ate it, and then we went wakeboarding, and that was my first time doing that. And I was on it for a good amount of time, and I fell off. I had the little what is it? The little floaty thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm being super long in this story. And I remember once I was on that, that's when I started tripping, and I hit the water so hard that it knocked me out.
Hmm.
That I woke up, and when I woke up, I was just kind of just in the water, but I'm fine, because I'm wearing the safety vest thing. And then at that point in time, I I just had a vision
Hmm.
of everything. The
Hmm.
world felt calm,
Yeah.
but I felt how small I was
Hmm.
in such just a big world that was
Yeah.
thriving. And at that point in time, like I felt my daughter on me being like, yo, like everything's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Like everything's gonna be okay. And so for that whole night, I was fine, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Because I had that little intervention.
A little ease up, a little ease
Right.
up. The edge.
So the
Got.
the, 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 the thing that sucks though is like a couple days later you start feeling it again or whatever. So I was when I was in Dallas, I went through a point where I got to Dallas when COVID first started. And
Hmm.
so everything was closed. You know what I mean? We were just always at home. And so I went through just a whole period of just taking psychedelics.
Hmm.
And never took psychedelics to just go shoot the shit. I
Right.
always took it to I'm searching for something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember man, it was yesterday. I took like 10 grams. I was watching this Lion King Beyonce thing, not the one with the animals, but like the African dancing one and shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm watching that, and I'm going back and forth between my room, and it's just a whole bunch of different realities and stuff.
Hmm.
And I was laying in my bed in the darkness, and I felt like what afterlife would feel like.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
I've told the story before. I feel like I've told it a million times. What afterlife feel like, and just the peace, right?
Hmm.
Just the peace. And
Hmm.
so when I would go back into the other room, and mind you, at this point, like I'm tripping balls, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like super hard. So I go back into the other room and the TV's on, I got music going. For some reason I got a chair in the middle of the living room, and that was my mind being like, this is the chaos of the world that you were gonna have to deal with.
Yeah.
So I went back to the darkness of my room.
Yeah.
I felt good. Now at this point, like I'm crying, you know what I mean? Um, because I'm also trying to, like trying to convince myself like suicide, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and me have has when I was super depressed and thought about suicide, I was the person who was scared to do it,
Yeah.
yada yada yada. But now that I'm tripping, I'm like, hey, maybe I'll have the courage
Yeah.
to actually pull through and do it.
Yeah.
And so I'm going back and forth between this peaceful realm and this
Chaos.
chaos,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
at this point, I I come to this conclusion that I would never see my daughter again in her flesh. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like I would just only feel her energy. You know, when we die, then our energy become one. Yada yada blah blah.
Yeah.
So you know, I'm crying. And I'm telling myself like, bro, like you can kill yourself right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm talking to myself like I'm like I make up the rules and shit. Like you
Right.
can kill yourself right now, and nothing won't happen because you know, like you made this choice, yada yada yada, or you can stay alive
Mm-hmm.
and have to deal with all this pain,
Mm-hmm.
have to just deal with whatever the fuck's going on in
Catastrophe
the
of
world.
life. The
Right?
catastrophe
Yeah.
of life. Yeah.
And so I was looking at myself in a mirror also,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, mind you, I'm still like tripping. But as I'm looking at myself, and a lot of people say, I don't know why people always say like when you're tripping, don't look in the mirror at yourself, but I always do, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And so what I'm seeing is I'm just seeing like just a strong king, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember I was crying, and I was like ugly crying too, and I was like,
Yeah.
fuck, like at this point in time, I'm gonna have to pick the chaos. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And so that was my long story less long. That was my way of choosing life
Yeah.
because I felt like I was at the bottom to the point where I convinced myself that it was okay to commit suicide. I convinced myself that after that, once you life is over, you're gonna be in this just this peaceful realm. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I told myself to dream on that, you know.
Yeah.
But then when I was just in there with all the other shit and just seeing the chaos,
Yeah.
and I was just like, as much as I fucking hate it, as
Yeah.
much as I hate to fucking be here and to
Yeah.
have to be one of those parents who had to bury their child
Yeah.
before them, you know what I mean? I hated it, but I loved it at the same time because I still wanted to be able to feel that pain, if that makes any sense.
Wanted to be alive.
Yeah. And now that I'm like, man, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
But like, but
It's not though. And
I
that's
can
what
I can
research
never be
do.
serious the whole time. I'm sorry,
But these
but no,
psychedelics, I mean, there's good research
right,
to show that they do help. They do help. I do advise that a person does it with a, like in a supervised way, so you're not alone.
right, right.
Because that day you could have made the decision to end it, right?
Real shit. Real, I really could have, and I mean, when I was going through the pros and cons, but
Mm-hmm.
I was weighing on the cons so much
Yeah.
that, and not saying that I wholeheartedly wanted to do that, but I didn't want to give myself any choice to be like, oh man, you should, you know what I mean? It was like if you really, really, really want to do it, it's
Mm-hmm.
right there.
Now is the time. Yeah.
You
So
know
that's
what I mean?
not
Yeah,
one because some people do have some nasty trips, nasty experiences, and
yeah.
yeah, I don't know that I would. I don't know that I
You
ever.
should microdose. You should microdose.
I don't know. I don't know.
You be alright, man. Yeah.
I hear some people puke their guts up on ayahuasca, and uh,
Yeah,
but that it's a mostly positive experience.
right. I've done DMT here and there, but I've been too scared to just go deep in because
Hmm.
like acid and shrooms and shit is like pretty intense, but
Yeah,
DMT is like acid and shrooms times like
like on
a
steroids.
hundred at the blink of an eye. Like
Yeah,
it just
I'm not that adventurous. I think maybe men, I think a lot of men, a lot of guys are maybe feel more comfortable with psychedelics than even like talk therapy because fellas are
right.
trained not
Yeah.
to talk too much. And those things they do help you come to a lot of understanding and
Hmm.
within a short time,
Yeah.
short time.
That like I honestly I agree with that because there's times when I have done psychedelics and I'm trying to just deal with something in here
Mhm.
and maybe I'll kind of talk about it and it'll just be kind of but then I'll just really deal with it inside of the inner workings of my mind,
Right.
and I deal with it.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I just think that as men sometimes that we just need that just little extra
Like a
opening.
little opening. Like a little
Yes,
opening. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I feel, and my girl's really good at it because she's always like, to, I can open up, you know what I'm saying, and everything like that. And
Mhm.
even though I know that it's a safe space, because
Mhm.
even with Rose, she's like, yo, like, when I'm depressed, like people usually know because I'm just like in my own head. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like I may not look sad, but I'm quiet, and you can just tell that I'm just thinking about something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so she's trying to help me get better at just kind of articulating myself a little bit better. But the thing about it is that even though somebody is saying like, hey, and somebody that loves me and I know that is thoroughly there for me and wants to help
Mhm.
me is telling me like, hey, this is a safe space. You can, speak to me. For me, it's still hard.
Still hard because you've been conditioned, like most of the men in our generation and before, to not share your feelings too much. You gotta be a
Right.
man. Big boys don't cry,
Yeah.
especially for black men. Like that's one of the reasons. So my cousin's coming on Transforming Trauma podcast on this Thursday to talk more about your baby girl, your grief story, depression,
Yeah.
mental health, because I do think our brothers, like, they miss out on so much because we're trained with that kind of idea of being strong and to keep things in, but that just means you're just suffering alone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's what she says I do, that like I'll suffer in silence, like I'll suffer like from the inside. And when I really thought about that, I was like, man, I really do.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
I'll be having the like worst day, the worst feeling,
Hmm.
and I'll just hold it in, and then maybe somehow like she'll say something, and I might just kind of talk about it, and then I'll just like feel so much better. But
Absolutely.
I'm so used to being sad and depressed
Hmm.
that when I become happy or ecstatic, I'm
Hmm.
confused. I'm,
Yes.
I'm confused, and then I'm feeling like, okay, if I'm happy right now, then I know
Yeah.
10 minutes later something messed up is gonna happen.
You're waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And since 4/20/2016, that is how I've been feeling about
Yes.
happiness. Yeah, like
Yeah.
if something good is going, it could be going good for a week, and I'm like,
Yeah.
if something good, if I'm happy for a week, I
Yeah.
know, like I don't know, but I'm feeling I'm gonna be messed up for a
Yeah.
week
Yeah.
later. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I
And
understand. And
and,
it
and
takes a lot of emotional energy to, like, grind that down
right,
so
right,
you come back to restoration, It takes a lot of work on the inside.
yeah. So I don't know, but I mean, all in all, I feel like I'm getting there. I feel like I'm getting better. But the thing is I feel like I'm getting better at the moment because I think somebody said something. Oh, right here. Uh that grief comes and goes. So I mean, so now I just kind of just try to live my griefs in the moment
Yes.
and know that I'm never gonna not feel this. Whenever I don't feel this, that's probably gonna be when I'm dead.
Yeah.
But just as my time living, because this is like, it is exhausting. Like it is so exhausting just of to have my mind constantly thinking about something, or my mind constantly trying to remember something, or
Yeah.
me just trying to hold it together, or
Yeah.
me trying not to talk about something, or me having to be okay with
Yeah.
conversations that people have because they don't know my situation. So
That's right.
like I used to be very bad at that, where if somebody would say something about a dead baby, I'd be like, "Yo, hey man, but now I just keep my mouth shut." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because like now, as fucked up as it sounds, I'm just trying to know my place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I don't want to fuck up everybody's day
Yeah.
by some sad shit. You know, so
It's easier. The pain is not so overwhelming that it's like busting through, because
right.
in the beginning there's nothing you can do. It's just that's all you're thinking about all day every day. And I thought about it this week. It's almost as if as soon as my eyes open in the morning is the first thought. The first thought I'm thinking about him. You know what I mean? But the thing is, that's not much different than how it had been in our day-to-day lives. So it's a kind of a learning. I don't know how to say that. Like you're learning that you're not going to go for coffee. You know what I mean? So your schedule is changing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's a lot of emotional work. It's a lot of emotional energy to have that playing in your head all day, every day, but you still have to do regular work. You still have
Right. Right.
the kid stuff. You still got to pay the bills. The bill's not stopping, you know. You still have to
Yeah.
guys. Yeah, it's getting easier again. And like I said, I started adding physical exercise into it because it just feels like you're moving against current, like you're walking through butter, you know.
Right. Right. Damn. Yeah. Is there any last words? We want to wrap this up.
Last words to wrap it up. I see some cool like Benoit in here who talks about his daughter and just just how some special days can be rough. And yeah, for me, I think in Dominica we have a saying, or we have words to mean, conk, right? You went to the VIs, conk. I mean, so the conk, you have to beat the meat, beat it. You gotta beat it. You have to beat the meat. But essentially, that's what you're doing. You gotta pound conk,
yeah.
to make it edible. And grief can feel like as if you're getting pummeled, man. Like you're getting
Right.
pounded, you're getting beat down. And in the beginning, whatever your reason for grief, it is what it is. You just gotta, I think you gotta feel it. Because when we try not to feel it, when that's our main aim, like not feeling it, then we'll do a lot of weird ish to not feel it. But that energy is so powerful that the kinds of things we have to do have to be just as powerful on the other side. Like
Right.
getting stoned, getting drunk, getting like putting, some people will put themselves in harm's way, just take me out.
Yeah.
So the the other way, which seems like it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense, and you move through it faster, is to feel it. You just gotta surrender, man. You just gotta let yourself be like the conch and let the pain beat you up, because like you said earlier, at a certain point, it stops feeling like you're just being beat up all day, every day. It's going to
Right.
shift to other things, and you don't lose them. You don't lose them. My love for my mom is still there. My love for Campy is still there. It's never
Yeah.
going away. You know. So, but it's process. I don't think time alone heals. I think we have to become more involved in recovering from the grief,
Right.
because
Definitely.
if we're not, it'll, man, that energy is so big, it'll wear you out. It'll wear you
Yeah.
out. Yeah, it'll wear you out. So
Very true.
yeah.
Well, this is great. Thank you for being on here. I will be on your show on Thursday. What time is that going
Thursday
on?
at 7 p.m. Eastern. So that's
It is 6
your
p.m.
time.
my time.
Yes, sir.
All right. So yeah, thanks for being on here.
Thank
Yeah,
you
it's
for having
always
me.
and I guess I'll text you before Thursday too. But yes, and thanks to everybody for watching, and y'all have a wonderful night.
Thank
See ya.
you.